All right. If everybody shows up online, yay. So doing better interviewing. This is part of the series that we were doing already. So we've already finished the LinkedIn interviewing 101, and the videos are up online for that. Next week, we're doing mock interviews about the same time. It's going to be from, 10 or 11 to 4. I don't remember exactly what the times are, but we sent out signups yesterday. So it's a great place to practice everything that we're talking about. And then we do have the actual career fair on the 24th, where we have 12 companies signed up, and that should be really good. We have several new companies that we haven't had before, and they're very excited. I'm excited, so everybody's excited. All right, so let's jump into it and start talking about interviewing. So when does the interview actually start? And I meant this to be animated. I wasn't trying to give away the answer, but pretty much once you click submit, your interview is started. From the moment that they start contacting you, or the potential is there for them to contact you, you basically started interviewing. If they call you, that's part of the interview. If they email you, that's part of the interview. Everything of all of that is part of your interview. The way you react, the way you respond, are you responding professionally? All of that. So be prepared for unexpected phone calls. If you are doing any sort of applications or in the process of, just be ready for them. So it means you need to answer the phone professionally in a friendly manner. It helps if you identify yourself. So I typically say, hello, this is Ben. Immediately tells them that they're either contacting the right person or the wrong person. You don't want to go with the hey or anything like that that you might answer when you're talking to your friends, when you can see who it is that's calling you. You don't want to sound surprised to receive the call. Do sound enthusiastic, but try not to sound too surprised, like, oh, I never thought this was actually gonna, I don't think you guys would call. Don't do that. But hey, I'm really excited. Do sound enthusiastic, right? And have your voicemail set up. Don't have it just be the string of numbers that says you have reached 214, like whatever. No. At least have it set up to say you've reached the mailbox of Ben Porter or whatever, right? If you can do a personal phone recording, all the better too. You don't really need to leave detailed instruction about, hey, this is Ben, leave your phone and I'll get back to you. People know that now, but just tell them you're unavailable when you call them back, type thing. But it really helps to confirm that they actually reached the right person. So I know for me, if I call somebody and I get that multiple number thing, if I'm calling for business, I usually won't leave a message. Other people who are more professional might, but I don't always. So be ready with the phone, have it all set up for that. And if you haven't, you do have it set up and you haven't listened to it in a while, listen to your away message. I think I went for like 2 years saying the wrong job because I had not listened to it. So be sure you listen to it. Always answer your emails professionally. And get as much information as you can before the interview. So the pre-call usually is to set up all the times and everything like that. You can also ask, what's the format going to be? Is it a panel interview? Will I be talking to multiple people? Am I allowed to know who they are ahead of time? Not always. They usually don't really share that information about who you're going to be talking to ahead of time. Sometimes they don't even know, but if you can get that, all the better. If there's multiple steps to the interview, anything like that. So try to get as much as you can. When it comes to the actual scheduling, especially if it's going to be a phone interview or a video interview, make sure you are clear on the time zones. Because if somebody's calling from New York and you're in Texas, there's an hour difference there. That's a really sucky mistake. So I have not made that mistake. Well, no, I have made the time zone mistake, not for a job interview, but for some other things. So yes, if you can name the mistake, I've made it. All right, for the phone interviews, major part of it, find a quiet location. You don't want there to be a lot of business going on in the background. Doing it in a Starbucks, not always the best idea. If you have to do something like that, make sure you have the headphones with the microphone that you're pretty much the only thing they hear. But anything that you can remove the distractions is better. So always try to find a nice quiet location. Try to find a location that simulates an in-person interview. So it's always better to be sitting at a desk or sitting at a table because you feel different. You act differently than if you're slouching on the couch.
Right.
Right. If I'm a little bit too relaxed, that's going to come across. It's like,
So posture is important as well.
posture is important. It's a mental thing, right? If you're sitting up straight, you're trying to do all the right positioning and everything, it comes across. You can hear it in the confidence. Do try to remove any and all distractions. So let your roommates know, or anybody else who might be in the wherever you are, like, hey, I'm going to be doing this for the next half hour. Try to keep it down. No vacuuming in the next room. I was on a video interview once where that was happening. I was doing the interview. The interviewee had like vacuuming in the background. It was really annoying. So try to do that. If you expect interruptions, just warn the interviewer. Like try to remove them as much as possible. But I remember this one person I was interviewing. They were trying to return to the workforce after having children. So they had a toddler, and they were like seriously apologetic about it. But when we hired them, they were one of the best people I'd ever had work for me.
Nice.
So it's just that make sure that, if you're going to have those interruptions because of life, just let them know. And know your tech. Don't try to switch over to do speakerphone and hang up on the person. Okay. If you do speakerphone, because sometimes it's easier to hear and take notes or anything like that, make sure you warn them. They can hear the difference, and it's just a professional courtesy to let them know, hey, I'm going to switch over to speakerphone so I can hear you better. There's nobody else in the room, right? And don't record, because that's also just a professional courtesy. All right, video interviews are a bit more challenging, but it's mostly because of the technology that they are more challenging. So you want to test everything first. Make sure that the video is good, the audio is good, your internet's good, everything that you can as much as possible. When you're doing video interviews, you want to raise the camera up as much as possible. Otherwise, you get something like this. Let's see if I can share this really quick. All right, so this one, when you're looking down at it, you get the kind of double, triple chin thing. So you want to try to keep it eye level as much as you can, right? So, I mean, that's better. And knowing where the camera is, try to look into the camera. It's really tricky because when you put the picture right below it, and somebody who can invent this is going to make a lot of money, come up with a screen that has the camera in the middle of the screen. I just want one of the products. You can take the idea. It's okay. But you can tell when I'm looking at me versus the camera. So you want to try to look at the camera as much as possible. One way that you can cheat is to try to duplicate for now. There we go. Shrink down the video. Like I said, know your tech. Shrink down the video and just try to put it immediately underneath the camera. That way, when you're looking at it, it looks closer to actually looking into the camera, right? So try to figure that one out as much as you can and practice with it. Like I said, you can just switch over to the camera view and look at yourself and see how it looks when you're doing it. All right. Sharing this. Oops, I messed up my slideshow. Okay. The other thing that helps is raising up the computer, which is why I actually have the display here, is because I tried to raise it up as much as possible when I was teaching classes during COVID. That way it is kind of eye level with you. I've done interviews online where you just stack a bunch of books underneath it to try to get it eye level, right? But anything you can do to get it eye level, and then you want to keep it about an arm's length away. You can see too close, too far away. You pretty much want to be centered in the middle of it. But everything just comes down to try it ahead of time and check your lighting. So a couple of general tips for video interviews: always check your background. You want a fairly nondescript room so people can't assume too much about you. Like no alcohol bottles in the background from the kitchen or anything like that. Be sure you clean the room that you're in. if you're in your room, have your bed made. Everything like that. So you do want it to be pretty nondescript, but having some items does help with the echo. So it's okay to have things on the wall. I actually disagree. This one's trying to show you to remove stuff off the wall. You don't want it to be a large distraction or anything, but having a few things in the room can help to absorb some of that echo. Maybe not directly behind you, and that's what they're trying to illustrate here. But you don't want the room to be completely devoid of everything. Definitely check your lighting. So here you can see the lighting from the glare from the windows, pretty bad. So he just shuts the curtains and raises the camera up, helps with that. The glare off the person's glasses here, really bad. So you always want to try to be lit from the front and at a slight angle. So you want the lights to come from either side, like I'm terrible with degrees. What is that, 45 degrees from here or so? You don't have to go buy a fancy ring light or anything like that, but just have a couple of lights there to help balance it out. You don't want the light just always coming straight down from the top. That's it. Yeah. You don't have to be a lighting professional, but just, look at it and see what looks good and play around with it for a little bit. And definitely avoid the backlighting, anything like that. Dress appropriately, top and bottom. It's bad if you have to get up and you're not wearing pants. So shoes too, yes. Yeah. And actually, so Neha mentioned that when she was giving the presentation last week, like they actually asked to see her feet. I haven't heard that often, but now I'm going to be wearing dress shoes every time. And the good posture, definitely be careful of swivel chairs because it's always the tempt to swivel, rocking back and forth, all of that. Or rocking chairs, no rocking chairs. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's see if I can actually. Nope. Hang on. Messed this one up. I forgot to actually share with audio and everything. Hang on, technical difficulties as always. I've been using these for years. Like you think that I would know. I forgot that I had videos actually. That's the problem. It's more of a do as I say, not as I do. Yeah. I got that back up. I think I'm gonna have to close that and reopen it. All right, now this should work. Show from the current slide. Don't stop it. There we go. No, what? Okay.
Yesterday I posted on Twitter the bosses of
Yeah, this is why you need to know your tech. Stop it. They're only like 30-second videos. It shouldn't even like be this way. That's turned up. Is this muted? We're gonna get to the video and you're gonna be so disappointed. It's like, wow, that's what we were struggling for. Okay, it's great.
Yesterday I posted on Twitter the bosses of ITV are coming in to ask them. I get various suggestions. Some serious,
okay,
some
you'll get the gist here in a second.
I thought this one was very interesting from somebody called Henry Warren, and he says this: could you please ask them why they're not turning on the subtitles by default on children's TV? It's been shown to double literacy. YouTube, which you mentioned in Caroline, already do it. Kids do it. YouTube Kids do it.
So just
and the BBC are also now embracing this.
Oh, there we go.
Why? And I apologise for my cat's tail. Why are
just,
you
he's part of the Parliament. And he's doing a presentation in Parliament.
Rocco, could you tell them?
Yeah. And just see everybody else just to go and crack up.
90% of
I do. It helps. This guy, I feel bad.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is how.
So this is a professor. He just wanted really bad to be like
for the wider
people
region.
who's like the official on
just
TV.
I mean,
like
shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do.
So I gotta lock the door.
My apologies.
Yeah. So, anyways, there's lots and lots of examples
To
of
the
that. You'll
region.
find the ones with the interviews where people aren't
My
wearing
apologies.
pants
North,
and all that. So just double check your background and everything else that's going
North
on.
Korea, South Korea's policy choices on North
yeah.
Korea have been severely limited.
Okay. So definitely keep in mind, anytime you're doing a phone or a video interview, there are less cues. Especially on the phone, you don't have either visual cues. It's a lot harder to hear the person correctly, to get those intonations and everything like that. Even with video, it's the same way. You take out a bunch of it that you lose that face-to-face. The phone and the video, actually, it's really not always easy to tell who's talking or who's supposed to be talking, because you lose some of those cues. So careful on that. It is a lot easier for your interviewer to get distracted. So if you're talking like a phone interview, you want to keep your answers short. Like, still answer the question, yes, but we're talking like 30 seconds to a minute. Video, you can go a little bit longer, but they're still not going to be as long as when you're in person, or it's more of a conversation. It is a lot harder to gauge yourself. You can't tell if you're talking too fast, if you're talking loud enough, if you're talking clearly. So you have to be sure that you really listen to yourself as you're speaking, and try it out ahead of time too, just where recording it ahead of time can be useful. You have to sound interested, and you have to use active listening. So you get those little confirmations where you're doing the head nod on the video, so they can clearly see that you're into it and you're listening, giving the right, the little yeah, okay, that yeah, those little cues that just help to let them know that you're actually listening, or repeating things back. So that's the active listening, is when you can repeat things back to them, especially with the longer, complicated questions. In general, it's better to repeat those back, but especially on a phone or video interview, just to make sure you're getting all the pieces, or that you're interpreting it right. So repeat back their long, complicated questions. It is important to make it clear when you finish talking. Usually you can kind of do that with the definitive, just sounding word, right? How you kind of end on that down tone with a bump, like, okay, I'm done, without actually saying done, right? So just being clear with that, and then allowing an appropriate pause, so everything's good. And even if you're just on the phone, smile as you answer. You can hear it. You can actually really hear when somebody's smiling. It just changes. It changes everything about the tone. And definitely practice. So participate in mock interviews. You can record yourself and listen to yourself answer questions. There is one of the services that the Career Center offers is to do video interviews. So you can practice doing pre-recorded video interviews, and they can give you feedback on it. It's really useful. Pre-recorded interviews are especially tough, because there's nobody on the other side. You're just talking to your computer.
Right.
And if they let you record multiple times, I know there was one time I was doing a interview. It only had 5 questions, and it was 2 minutes per question. It took me 2 hours because I could keep recording over myself.
Right.
Yeah, trying to, but you're never going to get it exactly perfect. So it's just practicing it, being comfortable with it ahead of time.
Are most interviews nowadays going to be like video and phone?
A lot of them are online. A lot of them have definitely gone online now.
I seem like I struggle with the speaking through a screen.
Yes, yeah.
So I kind of have to. So it's just practice, right? I just got to practice.
It's a lot of practice, yeah. Yeah, it really is. Usually the first interview will be online or on a phone or something like that before they actually bring you in, because they're trying to whittle it down to just their top candidates, because it's expensive. So videos make it a lot cheaper. Do be ready for common behavioral questions, and we'll talk about those here in a minute, but you really want to have your main points in mind and your examples already ready. So know your resume, have thought about your history, look up those common behavioral questions, and just kind of have an idea how you would answer them. Don't want to script it out. You don't want to know word for word exactly what you're going to say, because if you flub, you're going to mess up then. And you don't want it to sound mechanical. You want it to actually be a conversation, be a story, that sort of thing. So just know where you're trying to end up and let it kind of go there naturally then. And then research the companies and try to figure out what they value. So you're not telling them what they want to hear. You are, well, okay, I'm about to say yes, you are. You're telling them what they want to hear, but you're telling them what they want to hear as it pertains to you.
Right.
Okay, so you're really trying to determine what it is that they are seeking, and then answering their questions with that in mind, to make sure that you're answering their questions correctly. All the while keeping it honest to you. So it can be, I mean, it sounds weird to go out and practice this, but actually go up and look up a couple companies, figure out the best you can what values they have, and then just try doing 1 or 2 questions, phrasing it to what you think they would expect. Even if you never actually get to try it, that experience of going through and doing it is helpful.
You get through that homework, right?
Right. Yeah. Doing the analysis. So how you don't want to answer questions. 1-word answers are bad, or even 3-word answers, right? These aren't your parents. You can go into greater detail. The non-answers. So the non-answers, I mean, like, tell me about a weakness that you have. Oh, I don't have any weaknesses. That's not, yeah. Tell me about a time that you had a hard time working with people. I've never had a hard time working with. No, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for more than that. So negating the question, don't do that. Okay. Be very careful of rambling. Most interview questions, I would say you probably need to answer within 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Unless it's just something that they're really asking for long drawn out, and kind of giving you feedback along the way that makes it seem that way. You really want it to be fairly short, shorter than you would expect. Including your introduction to yourself, and they're like, tell me about yourself. You don't want the long rambling thing that's going to go on for 5 or 10 minutes. Right. You want to have it somewhat brief. Yeah. You need to avoid the really personal answers. You can give somewhat personal answers. Those can be good. Helps to make sure that they know you're human and that you're connecting. But you don't want to go into details about, oh, I can't even think of an example. Man, I'm just totally drawing blank. Basically anything that you, when
you get too personal,
really,
professional. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what is a personal answer that you can give, but not too personal. It's just a fine line to tread. For example, okay, so I do have kids. Okay. That could come up in conversation. Fine. I'm not going to go into detail about diaper changes or where they are in their teenage life and their rebellion and everything like that, right? It's okay to mention that I have kids, but I don't want to go into details like that. That's the sort of thing that can come later after we're chummy and I've been hired, but not yet. Okay, negative answers. You do not want to be negative, either about people or previous jobs or employers. Even if it's that you had to leave a previous job because you were fired or it was a toxic environment or things along those lines, you want to try to find a way to say it that doesn't come across that way. Okay, try to avoid the negative as much as you possibly can. For example, I had to leave a job because I was not getting along with my boss very well. Okay, if I were to put it all on my boss, that sounds really bad, right? Instead, you have to accept responsibility and be like, well, yes, we didn't get along very well, but I think we both had some misconceptions about the position. It was different than what we thought was going to be. Along those lines, rephrase it as a learning experience, right? That sort of thing. You want to be careful of overly critical answers. And by overly critical, I mean overly critical of the company. So if they're asking you, how would you improve something that they're doing? You don't want to go into a diatribe about 20 minutes long about how they're screwing everything up, right? That's bad. You don't want to also go in and say how you're going to change absolutely everything for the better, because they're probably doing some things really well. And they're probably the people who are interviewing are the ones who put that together. So you got to be careful of that. Desperate answers. Why would you want this job? Because I need money. Not good, right? What would you like to do here? Anything. No. So you don't want to come across as desperate. When you're applying for the job, have a reason that you're picking that job aside from just the money. Make sure that you can fall back on that. Same with any of the positions or anything like that. Have something in mind. Always aim for having the choice rather than you have to have the job. And then boilerplate answers. You can always tell when something's been too practiced or they looked up an answer online and that's what they're using. You can always hear it. So that going back and knowing what the end goal is for your answering a question, that helps to avoid the boilerplate. Okay. The reason that they're asking you questions isn't because they want to hear the boilerplate, it's because they want to hear actual answers on your experiences and how you've done things. Okay, so how do we actually approach questions? Do your research and prepare. So you're definitely researching the company, like we said earlier, kind of trying to get into their psyche, get into their values. and preparing ahead of time. So it's not just researching the company, but also knowing the types of questions that they might ask, and having some idea how you might answer them. There are certain questions that you can just look up online, like the top 15 interview questions and that sort of thing. If you know that they're going to want to do a technical question for you, like some sort of test, be ready for that. You can ask that usually too. They might not always be able to answer, but you can at least ask. Know the company's history, right? Already know about the company, what they sell, everything like that. So you don't just sound totally unprepared. When you ask a question, you want it to be a good question. Oh, I don't actually have anything in here about asking questions. Okay, remind me, we'll get to that at the end. It is okay to pause. If they ask you a question, if you need to take a second to think about it, that's okay. You don't need to immediately jump in. They're asking it for the first time and they're expecting you to put some thought into the questions. If it's going to be a little longer than a second, kind of give them more, oh man, let me think about that for a minute. Don't take an actual minute, but you can take that pause, right? You don't have to immediately jump in. Do make sure you understand the question. There's been multiple times when I've been interviewing people in the past where I thought the question was fairly clear, but they took it in a completely different direction. So some of that can be they just phrased it poorly, or you misheard something. So that's where it comes back to being helpful to always repeat the question back to them, just to make sure you get it right. But do make sure you know what the question is, and then try to figure out why they asked it. What was the intention behind the question? Do they really want to know about how I had a conflict with somebody, or they just want to see how I handle conflict, period, right? When they're asking about what are some weaknesses that I have, they're not really looking for me to say that I'm a terrible employee or anything. Everybody has weaknesses and they know it, right? So it's really trying to figure out how mature are you? Do you recognize those weaknesses? Are you trying to improve upon them? That sort of thing. So that's one of those more canned answers where people can give like, oh, I'm a perfectionist. I try too hard. No. Give an actual answer, but then also try to figure out what they're asking for. That one they're asking, how are you dealing with it? Okay. And to see if you're going to give something really personal. Be efficient, but be sure to answer the question. So like we said, you want to keep to 2 or 3 minutes when you're talking in person. So you can't ramble too much, but you also want to make sure you actually answer the question. And it's okay to ask them, hey, did I answer your question? Right. And that's also one of those things where if you didn't understand the question the first time, they can clarify, well, it's not really what I meant. What I was asking was actually this. Give them that opportunity to correct it. Always forget. Okay. Especially if it's a multiple part question. If they're doing like 3 parts to the question, then, okay, I got this part, I got this part. What was the last part? That's okay, right? It's also handy with multiple part questions to write down little notes to make sure you check them off as you go. Do be honest, right? So you are telling them what they want to hear, but it's in the context of you and you're being honest about your experiences. So if they're asking you something that you don't have experience with or anything, it's okay to be honest. If I were to say, oh, we'll get to that. Okay. Be proactive. Oh, geez, what did I mean by be proactive? Huh. I'm thinking that goes back to the research, but I think it's actually more than the research with being proactive. Be proactive in that you're actually, it is researching the company, but it's also going and possibly doing more, like talking to some of their employees, asking like, hey, what sort of thing would they be looking for, all that stuff. And being proactive, it's also when you figure out what question they're asking you, slipping in some of those other things that they want to hear, right? So you're asking me, how do I want to improve myself? Well, I can also comment about how I'm a good communicator while I'm trying to talk about some of these other things, right? You're slipping in some of these other little cool facts about you to show off without being cocky. Yeah, yes. You're trying to pack as much in there as you can that will wow them. But you also don't want to come off overly confident. So it's that delicate balance, right? All right, so let's try it out. So we were going to have small group on this one. I think it's going to be a very small group. All right. So tell me about a time you had to work with someone you didn't have a good relationship with. How did you cope? So if you don't have one exactly, just tell me how you approach it.
Well, I'm gonna have to think about that one, but I would approach this problem with like you said, the communication. I'm big on communication and talking things out. I think that's just the best way to work things out with someone else, just to communicate and talk with them directly, and we can settle our differences and put things aside.
Nice. What do you think they're looking for with this question?
They're looking for it depends on, I think what they're looking for is like how you handle if you were to have a bad relationship with someone in the workspace, like especially at their company, like how can you get past that? How can you work around that and still thrive in their work environment, right?
Yeah. So what would be some bad answers?
Oh, I sock the guy in the face.
Violence is not a good answer. That's true. Yeah. Some of the other ones they don't necessarily want to hear is that you did everything yourself.
Okay.
Right. So that person wasn't responding, so I just did it completely myself. Right. They are trying to see how well you can work with other people. So are you mature enough where you can still have your differences and work professionally with somebody? Okay. Tell me about a time you failed. What did you do?
Well, I mean, I personally like failure. I think failure is a good thing. I think it's good to have a growth mindset. So I can't come up with a particular time that I failed, but to have I like to have a growth mindset and take failures as like a learning experience and to improve myself from that. Nice.
So that is the type of answer you want to go for.
Yeah.
Now, if you can come up with an example that fits it, all the better, because everybody's failed at something. Right? Yeah. No, I'm putting you on the spot. But it is, you want to have a legitimate time that you failed, and then you want to talk about how you recovered from that, and then it's the lessons learned. So it's a multi-part answer, right? So time I failed. I say I should have prepared for this. I'll go back to the job I was talking about with the boss that I didn't get along with, right? I would consider that a bit of a failure, okay? I entered into the job. I had one impression of what it was supposed to be. They had a different impression of what it was supposed to be, and we couldn't make it meet in the middle, right? So that was a failure and really set me back because I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to actually fail in a job. That was the first time I had failed in a job. So what I had to learn was, why did I mess up? What happened? It would be easy for me to put all the blame on the other person, right? Say, oh, they were just a terrible boss. Everything like that was terrible. That's not the case. There's definitely things that I messed up on. I needed to communicate better. I needed to plan better. Part of it's I just didn't have enough experience, right? So in the future, to get past that, I would definitely make sure I understand the job well. Maybe actually have it written out in all the descriptions and make sure that we're on the same page. Check in more with the person to make sure we're doing it the same. And then learn how to plan better, get some more of that experience ahead of time. So really they're looking for that growth mindset, like you said. So it's how you failed, what you did to cope, and what you're doing in the future, lessons learned.
So you're just answering it in sections, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like sectional answer.
For that one, yes. Yeah, that one you can kind of figure out how to make it sectional.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm getting the hang of that.
Yeah.
Cool.
What would be a bad answer for that one?
Well, I just gave up.
Giving up's not great.
I got frustrated and I gave up.
Yeah. I failed a test, so I studied harder. That's lame. I mean, so you want to give some detail, right? Otherwise, it just feels like you're blowing off the question. So how did you study harder? I developed a study plan, right? I actually met with the teacher. I did study groups, going into more detail. So don't be too general on it too. Okay. What does customer service mean to you, and what makes for good customer service? So yeah, we are engineers. We're going to engineering. We try not to deal with people, but we're biomedical engineers, so we actually do try to deal with people. Customer service is part of everything. Okay. So what does customer service mean to you?
Well, I'm big on customer service. I work at Trader Joe's, and that's one of our big things, the wow experience, providing the wow experience to our customers. So pretty much what customer service is just doing the best, or doing the best that you can to make the customers happy. and just make their experience as the best it can be.
Okay. Well, what makes it for a good experience?
Well, you have to have a good demeanor
Mhm.
when communicating with the customers. You want to make sure that everything goes smooth with them, that you're smiling, having having a good time with them. You don't want to like you just you have to have a good attitude when it comes to working with customers and stuff like that.
Okay. Yes, so I'm gonna jump back for a couple things, especially for people who are gonna be watching this later. So yes to all of that. So good customer service, absolutely making the customer happy. If you can bring in specific examples, especially if you had a difficult customer or anything like that, all the better. So anytime that you can show off when you did good customer service works really well. So I had a student once who came to me. They were extremely distraught because they had just failed their last attempt at a class. They were a master's student. They were international. They had sunk $100,000 into their education. Now they're not going to get out of it. They're $100,000 in debt, and they're not going to actually get the degree. Okay. So good customer service on that one. Although I can't give the person a degree and I can't give them another chance, I can try to make sure they're taken care of. So I can try to calm them down as much as possible, help put them in contact with our financial aid, try to put them in contact with our counseling service, that sort of thing. So even if it's somebody who's screaming and yelling at you, it's keeping that calm demeanor, and it's making sure that their needs are met. So when we get phone calls and it's the wrong department, like, oh, I'm trying to get hold of admissions here on campus. Well, I'm not admissions. Hang up the phone. No. Good customer service is saying, okay, hang on just a second. I'm going to call admissions and then I'll transfer you over. Right. So it's helping to see their needs are done. For people who do not work customer service or have not worked retail or food or anything like that, if this question comes up or any question similar where you haven't really thought about it, take a second and think about what is good customer service from the customer side. So as a customer myself, what do I view as good? What do I view as bad? Good is when I call for the help hotline and I get a person, not just the automated thing. And when I go hold of somebody, they don't transfer me 5 times. They help them try to help sit through it with me, right? That's what good customer service would mean. I think those are the 2 points. Oh, one other point. If you ever find yourself in the interview and they asked a question and they're asking more questions on the same thing, like they're trying to clarify it, try to figure out what you're not saying that they want you to say. Okay. You were fine. But it's more just kind of spurred my thought on that one. Because we'll try to give, when we're doing interviews, we don't really want to lead the person to the answer directly, but we do try to get them more along the lines of what we're looking for. So it can be kind of worth saying, I don't feel like I'm answering your question. What is it? Can you give me a little bit more direction, or what are you looking for? That sort of thing. All right. Tell me about a time you had to deal with an assignment that was too difficult. What did you do?
Oh, this has happened multiple times throughout my academic career. Especially in my BMN 1208 class, we had a bunch of assignments that were really hard. We didn't really have much instruction on it. So what I did was I turned to alternative resources like the internet, for example, or textbooks, and just tried to do as much digging as I could to complete that assignment.
Good. Yeah, so that's exactly the sort of thing they're looking for with this question, right? Actually, they're looking for multiple things. That's one of them. Are you resourceful? Will you take the initiative to go out on your own and actually do the work? Yeah. So with your education, going out and looking things up for different sorts of explanations is good. Going and working during office hours is good. What else would I be looking for with this, do you think? Translating this now to the workplace, right? If you have a difficult assignment at work and you're having a hard time doing it, what would I want to hear?
Would you want to ask for assistance or ask for help from your bosses or anybody up there?
Yes. Yeah.
Ask for help.
Asking for help and clear communication. So, and asking for help after you've tried on your own. Okay. So it's not that you're immediately going and saying, I don't know how to find this on the internet. And then they show you the webpage and it's like, oh, you're a dumbass. No, you go and you actually try to figure it out on your own first. And then when you can't figure it out on your own is when you're asking questions. If you're dealing with an assignment and you're behind schedule, you have to communicate that. And it's good to keep that kind of, I mean, you're not telling them every minute, but you want to let them know early so that they can adapt. It's not always bad that you're falling behind. Sometimes it's just the way it works out. What is bad is when the due date comes and you tell me I'm like 3 days behind on this, I can't turn it in. Right? It's the same thing with the assignments at school. So if there's things in life that are causing you to be delayed, it's always better to let people know ahead of time. That's the sort of thing that we would be looking for and with this one. So anytime you have a question like this and you're not sure what it would be like from the employer point of view, put yourself in their shoes and think, what would I want to hear? If I've hired people to fix my car, right? And the part isn't going to come in for 2 weeks, but they don't tell me that. They just hold my car. I would want them to tell me that.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of thing. Man, that makes me mad. Okay. What is your favorite accomplishment from school and why?
My favorite accomplishment from school would be actually becoming a founding father of API, like the Accessible Prosthetics Initiative, and that was one of my favorite accomplishments because I was able to, actually start something, start a new chapter here at UTD that's very meaningful to myself and the community, the healthcare industry as well, and I get to work with a team of my classmates or colleagues that I really enjoy working with. I'm choking up.
That's okay. It was a good start. It was actually a really good start. So what am I looking for with this question? It could be a couple of things. It probably is a couple of things because I know there are a couple of things. Yeah.
I guess they'd be looking, they're looking towards like what kind of focus that you had in school. Like what was your, what sorts of things did you take from your university? Like what did you absorb and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm looking for your values, right? You went to I don't want to say a social group because that's not right. A professional group. I was focused on prosthetics. I was focused on helping people, that sort of thing. So you can pack a lot of your values into that, right? If somebody says, "Oh, well, I got a 4.0 graduation," right? Top accomplishment, right? That helps me know about your goal setting. If you tell me about a time that you struggled really hardcore in a class, but you brought it from an F up to a B, that tells me about persistence and things like that. So it's really, what are you communicating about your values, your struggles, what you think is good, right? So if you just tell me that your favorite accomplishment was that you got the degree, that's okay. That can be a good answer, but you got to tell me why, right? A lot of it comes down to the whys. And that's true for all the questions. You got to answer the why. Give the story, the background, give the examples. Okay.
These are hardcore.
Yeah. No, they are. And the thing is, just think about it and explain. Right. Tell me about a time you took initiative. I feel like I just stole this from you. It's good to have multiple examples too.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to think about that one and brainstorm about that one.
Okay. What do you think I'm looking for?
You would, like, as an employer, you would be looking for like how you would, like, how you take initiative, right? How you handle problems, how you get things done, if you're task-based, stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you take initiative, period? Right. What do you consider to be initiative? And I'm not sure exactly how to work this in correctly, but one of the things that will drive me nuts is when you go into the coffee room and you see like that little tiny bit of coffee in the bottom of the pot that nobody bothered to pour out and they didn't make a fresh pot.
Right.
So taking the initiative can be just as simple as making that fresh pot of coffee, or I saw that the printer was out, so I put more paper into the printer. Okay. So it's taking responsibility for things that aren't necessarily your tasks, right? So you can demonstrate multiple levels of initiative. It doesn't always have to be founding that big group or anything like that. So pointing out that you're a team player, that's what that other part is, right? It's the getting over the not my job mentality or leaving it for somebody else. Can be part of it, right? So you're definitely crafting what you want it to come across as.
So I can use my previous answer for that as well.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. If you were to do that, if you were to say, well, I would like to use the same example, change use the same example, but change the answer.
Yeah.
So I took an initiative because I saw there was a need. There was no club like this that existed.
Right.
We have a lot of students who are interested in prosthetics, so we wanted to get something more into that. We didn't have a great way to learn about it just exactly yet, so we did it our own,
Okay.
right? So yeah, refocus, same example, different focus. Okay. If you were a vehicle, what kind of vehicle would you be and why?
I would want to be a Jeep Wrangler.
Oh, wow.
Just
Okay.
because it's an all-terrain vehicle, and that just kind of shows that I can be dynamic in all workplaces amongst all sorts of people.
Nice. Nicely handled.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. You're ready for that
I
one.
was thinking about that.
So what are we looking for with that? You handled it well.
Yeah. You're looking to it's kind of like a trick question because you're looking to kind of apply yourself into the like it seems like it's sort of a funny question, but you really want to like apply yourself to that question and to what the employer needs, right? So just kind of
Yeah. What would be the worst possible answer for this?
I would want to be a Lambo because it looks cool.
I mean, no, because I mean, if you're going for a marketing company, okay. I think the worst possible answer would be, I don't know. Right, not answering it.
Right.
You cannot. These come out of the left field, and you have to answer them. You can't just not answer it. You can laugh at it. That's expected because it's supposed to be a surprise question, right? But you have to answer it. So take a second, think about it, and then answer it. Don't leave it hanging.
Does that one come up often?
Things like that, not necessarily the vehicle. I've heard what kind of animal would you be, or things like that. But things like that just kind of, they're meant to throw you off a little bit, but they're also meant to get you thinking. And they also want to see your creativity. It doesn't have to be a perfect answer because they know that you haven't thought about it before, really, right? But you have to do something. You cannot just say, I don't know, because then you're not playing. You're not being creative. All right, let's go into a little bit of the last minute stuff, some tips. So do bring your resumes, even if you're at the interview. So if you're going in for the interview, you're expecting that they've seen your resume, that they have a copy already, always bring it anyways. If they're interviewing 20 people in a row, they may not have it in front of them. They may not have actually looked at it. If they're bringing in managers who are not actually part of the hiring process, but they just want to have talk with you, they probably have not looked at your resume. It's a good bet. So you want to have something to hand them, which is also part of the reason that it's good to ask, how many people am I going to be talking with or anything like that. Make sure it's on resume paper. Do a nice job. It's a good resume. Have it proofread, everything like that. Dress appropriately. So we do have the comic closet on campus. It's a place where you can go borrow suits or professional wear. I think the only thing they ask is that you dry clean it when you return it, which makes sense. And it's not like they're from the 70s or anything like that. It's current styles. It would be cool. I would, yeah. Thrift stores are also good. We have some fairly large ones in the area where they're, again, good clothes, just gently used. All sorts of things. Prepare your clothing appropriately so it definitely stands out when you iron your shirt or if you polish your shoes or that sort of thing. Makes you look more prepared. So take some time, make sure your clothing is all right. Same with the proper hygiene. So again, comic cupboard, not just food. They also have some personal care items like deodorant, soap, if you're having any challenges with that. Make sure you wear deodorant. Make sure you wear deodorant. And if you do wear cologne or perfume, keep it easy. You don't want it to be a cloud that follows you when you walk into the room and overwhelms the people. Yeah. Same thing with when we actually come up to the career fair. You don't want a cloud following you around. It makes it so they don't want to stand close to you. Have breath mints or gum. You don't want to be chewing the gum while you talk to them, but popping it in really quick, chewing, and then spitting out, swallow, whatever, right? It helps clear the breath. I drink coffee a lot. So, and when you go on interviews, they will frequently offer you coffee. So if you do it, you want to be able to kind of take that break, refresh the breath in between people or anything like that. If the other person's not drinking coffee. Be careful what you eat. If they take you out to lunch, don't order anything with onions or anything like that, or no salami, like nothing like that. And even if it's leading up to the interview, just keep it clean food up until that point, stuff that doesn't overly smell bad. Ongoing, if you are doing interviews that go out for meals or anything like that, be conscious of if it is a messy food or not.
Right.
You want to try to eat food that will not be messy. It's not going to drip ketchup down your front or anything like that.
No burgers.
No burgers. You also don't want to order the most expensive item on the menu. It's just keep it normal. Really, the food is there to help with the conversation, or it's because it's a necessary thing. Or they want to make sure you can handle yourself professionally. So, all right. And let them pay if they offer. Leave behind any bags or computers or anything like else like that. And this is also for the career fair. You don't want to be hindered. So you can take a notebook that you can take notes in, that you can write down or anything, but you don't want to have an extra bag or anything like that. Career fair, especially because it's crowded. You don't want to be turning and whacking people with your bag or anything like that.
Okay.
Computers, I would recommend against. Portfolios are good. Notebooks are good. You want to be able to take notes handwritten. And usually you're not really going to be taking notes during the interview itself, unless they're asking you those multi-stage questions or anything like that, that you're like, oh, hang on, can I write that down? But you can take notes in between, right? I actually recommend taking notes because you want to remember when you're writing your thank you notes, because you always want to write thank you notes, what you talked about the person with. What you talked about the person about. There we go. So thank you notes. You want to keep it brief. You want to keep it somewhat personal, and you want to keep it professional, right? In that personal thing, that's where you refer back to like, oh, I really enjoyed your question about how I handled this situation. I thought about it a little further, and maybe I can sneak a little bit more in, right? That sort of thing. But it's more just referring back to let them know, hey, I actually paid attention and I remember you. Okay. Okay. I think that's it for thank you notes. Have tissues, pens, and something to take notes on. So again, with the notebook, it's embarrassing to have to ask to borrow a pen, so bring two.
Okay.
And tissues, it's not just for runny noses, it's for when your hand gets sweaty. You want to dry your hand off before you go shaking hands. So it's pretty handy with that. Do shake hands. If you are able to. If you can't shake hands, explain why. Like, oh, I'm sick, or my culture prevents me from shaking hands with people of the opposite gender, that sort of thing. But always explain if you can't, and if you can, do shake hands. Excuse me. Be confident, and be outgoing. So they're interested in you. That's why you're there. So keep that in mind the entire time. They invited you there. So you have some value already that they've decided they want to check out. So that should build your confidence. Be outgoing. That can be hard, especially for the introverts. So you just have to make an effort, kind of put yourself out there more than you would be normally, and just keep in mind that they're interested in you. You know you. Take some time to reflect beforehand. Oh, that's what the be prepared was, or proactive. Being proactive. This goes back to the being interested in you. You are your expert on yourself, but you need to be proactive and doing some of that self-examination. So knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing what you like doing, reflecting on your experiences, all of that. So that's being proactive and figuring out what could I possibly say that's going to help with this, right? So know yourself as much as you can. All right.
Does it matter what color suit and undershirt that you wear that have an
For the clothes, you don't want to wear anything really loud.
Okay.
So usually just the straight black or dark blue,
Black,
the white.
black on black, like black undershirt, black.
You can. Typically, the more flavorless you can, the better.
Okay.
You can put some personality into it, but you don't want it to be extremely loud or anything like that.
Right.
It used to be this whole thing like remove all piercings, cover up all tattoos, everything like that. People are becoming more accepting of it. I would still say for tattoos and things, you probably want to tone it down unless you already know that the company is accepting or the boss has like a tattoo on his face already. If that's not the case, then you still want to cover your sleeves, everything like that.
Yeah.
Piercings, as long as it's tasteful. I hate saying tasteful because it whatever. Nothing too revealing. Yeah, it's pretty much for interviews. You want to try to dress more conservative than you probably would normally. Yeah, so the black suit, the white shirt, some sort of tie.
Is the tie important? Like, do they like ties or?
Ties, again, it still goes back to the more conservative, the better for your interviews.
Okay.
if you know the company really well ahead of time and you know that they just always show up in jeans and t-shirts, then showing up in a suit's probably not the best idea.
Right.
Okay. So you do have to gauge it somewhat on what you know about the company. You still want to dress a little bit more professional than they would. So if they are showing up in jeans and a t-shirt, you better be in a slacks and a polo, or just a step above as much as you can,
Right.
just to show you're serious. There's something else I was going to come back to. I don't remember what it was. Should have written it down. Let's try it. That wasn't it. Then approach questions. Yeah. Okay. Dang, what was it? I can't remember. That's okay. But anyways, that's everything I had anyways. So good timing. It's 12. So hopefully that was helpful. You don't have to do this since you're the only person here. But yeah, if you have any other questions, always feel free to reach out. Yeah. Get a one-on-one session.
Well, yeah, that's good.
Let's see if I can remember how to turn this off now.